The sound of handcuffs ratcheting tight against Lieutenant General Aria Voss's wrists echoed louder than the sirens wailing down Main Street. She didn't struggle. She didn't scream. She simply stared into the eyes of Officer Ronan Blaine with a terrifying, icy calm that should have warned him he was making the last mistake of his career. "You have no idea what you've just done, son," Voss whispered, her voice low and dangerous. Blaine just laughed, shoving her against the hood of the squad car. "I know exactly what I've done. I've taken out the trash." He had no clue that the woman in his cuffs had the Secretary of Defense on speed dial, and his badge was about to turn into a souvenir of a life he used to have. The heat in Arlington, Virginia was oppressive, the kind of humidity that stuck your shirt to your back the moment you stepped outside. But inside the climate-controlled showroom of Dominion Luxury Motors, the air was crisp, scented with expensive leather and floor wax. Lieutenant General Aria Voss walked through the double-glass doors, enjoying the silence. She wasn't wearing her dress blues today. There were no stars on her shoulders, no ribbons stacking up her chest like a colorful armor of history. Today she was just Aria. She wore a pair of gray joggers, a simple black hoodie from her son's university, and worn-out running shoes. Her posture was still ramrod straight, a habit forged in the fires of West Point and hardened in the deserts of the Middle East. But to the untrained eye, she looked like just another tired woman running errands on a Tuesday. She was there for a specific reason. Her son, Silas, had just finished his master's at Georgetown. He had been driving the same beat-up Honda Civic since high school, a car that rattled every time it went over 40 miles per hour. Aria had saved to do this. She wanted to surprise him with a certified pre-owned BMW M3, a car he had posterized on his wall since he was 12. She ran a hand along the hood of a charcoal gray sedan, admiring the engineering. It was beautiful. "Can I help you find the exit?" The voice was nasally, dripping with a faux politeness that barely masked the disdain beneath. Aria turned. A salesman wearing a suit that was a little too shiny and a watch that was a little too big stood with his arms crossed. His name tag read, Gary. "Actually," Aria said, her voice smooth and measured, "I'm interested in this M3. Is it available for a test drive?" Gary looked her up and down. He saw the joggers. He saw the messy bun. He saw her black skin. He did not see the 3 stars she held in the United States Army. He did not see the PhD in strategic studies. He saw a waste of his time. "Test drives are for serious buyers," Gary said, turning his attention to a couple who had just walked in. White, dressed in business casual. "We have a credit check policy, and frankly, I don't think you want the hit on your credit score just to joyride." Aria smiled. It was a tight, small smile. She had negotiated treaties with warlords. She had stared down insurgents in Fallujah. Gary was nothing. "I intend to pay cash," Aria said, pulling her phone out to check the time. "If you aren't interested in the commission, I can wait for another associate." Gary let out a short, derisive huff. "Look, lady, we've had a rash of thefts in the area lately. People coming in, acting like they belong. Distraction techniques. I'm going to ask you to leave before I call security. You're making the other customers uncomfortable." Aria looked around. The showroom was empty except for the couple who had just entered, who weren't looking at her at all. "I'm not leaving until I buy this car," Aria stated, leaning back against the fender of the M3. "Go get your manager." Gary's face turned a blotchy red. He didn't go for the manager. He reached for the phone on his desk, but he didn't dial an extension. He dialed 911. "Yes, dispatch. This is Gary at Dominion Motors. I have a trespasser refusing to leave. She's becoming aggressive. I think she might be armed. Yes, send someone now." Aria watched him, shaking her head. She could have left. She could have gone to another dealership. But Aria Voss didn't retreat. Not when she was right. She simply unlocked her phone and sent a quick text to her aide, Major Thorne. "Running late. Hold the briefing." She had no idea that Gary's phone call had just triggered a chain of events that would shatter the quiet, affluent suburb of Arlington and reach all the way to the E-ring of the Pentagon. Officer Ronan Bulldog Blaine was having a bad day. His fantasy football draft had gone poorly. His divorce papers were sitting on his passenger seat, and he was stuck on patrol in the Gold Coast, the wealthy district where the biggest crime was usually a noise complaint from a pool party. When the call came in, trespassing aggressive subject, possibly armed, Blaine lit up. Finally, some action. "I got it," he radioed in. "I'm 2 minutes out." "Backup is rolling, Blaine," dispatch replied. "Officer Riley is en route." Blaine scoffed. He didn't need a Laura Riley. She was a rookie, too soft, always trying to de-escalate situations that needed a strong hand. Blaine pulled his cruiser up to the curb in front of Dominion Luxury Motors, slamming the gear shift into park before the wheels had fully stopped. He adjusted his belt, feeling the familiar weight of his Glock and his taser. He walked into the dealership with his chest puffed out, sunglasses still on despite being indoors. He spotted the suspect immediately. The description was vague. Black female hoodie, but she was the only one there who didn't look like she owned a yacht. She was leaning against a $100,000 car like she owned the place. "Step away from the vehicle," Blaine barked, his hand resting instinctively on his holster. Aria looked up. She saw the aggression in his stance, the veins bulging in his neck. She slowly lifted her hands, palms open, keeping them away from her waist. "Officer," she said calmly, "I am a customer. The salesman here." "I didn't ask for your life story," Blaine shouted, closing the distance. "I told you to step away from the vehicle." "I am complying," Aria said, taking a slow step back. "My name is Aria Voss. I have identification in my back pocket. If you'll let me reach for it." "Don't you move," Blaine snapped. He was in her face now, smelling of stale coffee and aggression. "You're trespassing. The owner wants you gone, and now you're failing to comply with a lawful order." "I'm not trespassing," Aria said, her voice dropping an octave, taking on the command tone she used to brief the Joint Chiefs. "I am attempting to make a purchase. This man filed a false report." Gary, the salesman, piped up from behind his desk, looking smug. "She threatened me, officer. She said she wasn't leaving and reached for something in her pocket. That was the match in the powder keg." Blaine didn't wait to verify. He didn't ask for the security footage. He saw a threat where there was none. "Turn around." Blaine grabbed Aria's arm, spinning her forcibly. "Officer, you are making a mistake," Aria said, wincing as he wrenched her shoulder. An old injury from a helicopter crash in Kandahar flared up with sharp pain. "I am a Lieutenant General in the United States Army. Check my ID." "Yeah, and I'm the King of England," Blaine spat. "You people always have a story. Stolen valor is a crime too, sweetheart." He kicked her legs apart. "Kick, spread 'em." The bells on the door chimed again. Officer Laura Riley rushed in, breathless. She saw Blaine manhandling the older woman, who was offering zero resistance. "Blaine! Blaine! Hold on!" Riley called out, sensing the dynamic was off. "She's not fighting. Let's just talk to her." "Back off, Riley," Blaine yelled over his shoulder. "She's resisting. Stop resisting." Aria wasn't resisting. She was standing perfectly still, her face pressed against the cold metal of the car she had intended to buy. But Blaine was performing for an audience now. Other customers were watching. Phones were coming out. He had to win. He unholstered his handcuffs. The metal clicked ominously. You're under arrest for trespassing, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest, Blaine recited, snapping the cuff onto Aria's right wrist. He yanked her left arm back with unnecessary force. Click! The sound was final. Aria closed her eyes for a brief second. She took a deep breath. When she opened them, the warmth was gone. The shopper was gone. The mother was gone. The general had arrived. Officer Riley, Aria said, staring at the rookie over her shoulder. Note the time. Your partner has just assaulted a senior military officer and violated my civil rights under the color of authority. I strongly suggest you do not touch me. Blaine laughed, shoving Aria toward the exit. Get moving, General. We'll see how much pull you have from a holding cell. As they marched her out of the dealership, Gary the salesman smirked and gave a little wave. Aria didn't look at him. She was looking at the security cameras. She was counting the angles. She was calculating the response time of the nearest military police detachment from Fort Myer. They pushed her into the back of the squad car. The seat was hard plastic, hot from the sun. Blaine slammed the door, shutting off the air conditioning to let her sweat it out for a few minutes while he bragged to the salesman inside. Aria shifted her wrists, finding the most comfortable position. She looked through the wire mesh at Officer Riley, who was standing by the trunk looking uneasy. Officer Riley, Aria called out. Riley hesitated, then walked over to the window. Look, ma'am, just sit tight. I'll try to process you quickly. I don't need processing, Aria said. I need my phone. My rights were not read to me, and I am entitled to a phone call. Unless you want to add kidnapping to the list of charges your partner is racking up. Riley bit her lip. She looked toward the dealership. Blaine was still inside, laughing with Gary. Riley made a decision. She opened the back door. She reached into Aria's back pocket and pulled out a slim leather wallet. She flipped it open. Her face went pale. There, behind the plastic window, was a common access card. It didn't just have a rank. It had the Department of Defense seal, and under rank, it read, Lieutenant General 09. Riley looked up, her eyes wide with horror. Oh my God. Dial the number in my contacts listed as the boss, Aria commanded, and put it on speaker. Who is the boss? Riley stammered, her hands shaking. The Secretary of Defense, Aria replied, and tell Blaine he better get his resume ready. He's going to need it. Officer Riley barely had time to process the 3 stars on the ID card before Blaine snatched the wallet out of her trembling hands. Give me that, Blaine growled, looking at the card. He squinted at it in the sunlight, flipping it over. Wow. High quality. Did you print this yourself, lady? Or did you buy it online? I hear you can get a full general kit on the dark web for $50. Blaine, stop, Riley pleaded, her voice cracking. That's a holographic chip. It's real. Look at the expiration. Look at the clearance code. We need to uncuff her now. Blaine turned on his partner, his face twisting into a sneer. You're pathetic. You know that. She's a suspect. Suspects lie. Suspects carry fake IDs to get out of trouble. If she was a general, she wouldn't be lurking around a car lot in sweatpants looking like a vagrant. Get in the car. He threw the wallet onto the dashboard of the cruiser carelessly, disrespectfully. Aria watched it slide across the plastic, her jaw setting. That wallet contained a picture of her late husband. You are making a catastrophic error in judgment, Officer Blaine, Aria said from the back seat. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the air conditioning hum like a knife. Every second I remain in these restraints adds another count to the indictment. I will personally oversee. Shut up. Blaine slammed his hand against the partition mesh. You have the right to remain silent, so use it. The drive to the 4th Precinct was a blur of aggressive driving. Blaine ran 2 red lights without his sirens on, seemingly just to show he could. Aria sat silently, her body swaying with the turns. She wasn't sulking. She was working. She was memorizing the route. She was noting the time. She was cataloging every procedural violation Blaine committed. Failure to secure seatbelt on detainee, excessive speed without emergency lights, verbal abuse, refusal to verify identification. When they arrived at the station, Blaine dragged her out of the car, parading her through the back entrance. The precinct was busy. Other officers looked up, some tired, some indifferent. "What you got there, Bulldog?" asked Sergeant Novak, a heavy-set man eating a sandwich at the booking desk. "Trespassing, resisting, and get this, impersonating a federal officer," Blaine announced loudly, shoving Aria toward the counter. She tried to pass off a fake DODID, claims she's a 3-star general. A ripple of laughter went through the room. "She looks more like she's a general of the soup kitchen," one officer joked. Aria stood tall. She looked Novak in the eye. "Sergeant, I am requesting you run my fingerprints immediately. They will flag in the IAFIS database under a Level 5 national security clearance. If you process me as a common criminal, you will be complicit in this unlawful detention." Novak paused, a piece of lettuce hanging from his lip. There was something in her eyes, a terrifying intelligence. He looked at Blaine. "Hey, did you check the ID properly?" "It's a fake, Sarge. Look at her." Blaine gestured to her hoodie. "Generals don't dress like that. Process her." Novak sighed, opting for the path of least resistance. "Book her. Put her in holding cell 2. It's the only one with AC." The humiliation continued. They took her mugshot, front side. They took her fingerprints. When her fingers touched the glass scanner, the machine beeped an error message Aria had seen before: restricted record, contact DHS. "Machine's busted again," the technician grumbled, hitting the reset button. He didn't know the machine wasn't busted. It just wasn't authorized to process the biometrics of the deputy commander of U.S. Strategic Command without a federal override. They took her shoelaces. They took her hoodie strings. They took her watch, a vintage Rolex given to her by the Saudi royal family after a diplomatic mission. Blaine tossed it into a plastic bag labeled evidence. Finally, they shoved her into cell 2. The heavy steel door slammed shut with a clang that vibrated in her teeth. Aria walked to the concrete bench and sat down. She didn't cry. She waited. She knew the clock was ticking. She had missed her briefing. Major Thorne would be calling her phone. When she didn't answer, he would track her GPS, but she wasn't going to wait for a rescue. She was going to end this herself. "Officer," she called out through the food slot, "I'm exercising my right to a phone call now." Blaine walked by, spinning his keys on his finger. "Phone's broken, General. Maybe tomorrow." He winked and kept walking. Aria closed her eyes. "Okay," she thought. "You want a war. You've got one." The air in the cell was stale, smelling of bleach and despair. Aria meditated, keeping her heart rate low. Suddenly, the door to the holding area opened. It was Officer Alara Riley. She looked pale, like she was about to be sick. She held a cordless precinct phone in her hand. "Blaine went on lunch break," Riley whispered, hurriedly unlocking the food slot. He told me not to let you call anyone, but I'd looked up your name on Google on my personal phone." Riley's hands were shaking as she passed the phone through the slot. "I saw the Wikipedia page," Riley said, tears welling in her eyes. "I saw the medals, the Purple Heart, the Distinguished Service Cross. "Oh my God, ma'am. I'm so sorry." Aria took the phone. Her expression softened just a fraction. "You're doing the right thing, Alara. Remember that when the deposition comes. You tried to stop it." Who are you going to call?" Riley asked. "A lawyer." Aria dialed a number from memory. A number that didn't go to a law firm. It didn't go to a bail bondsman. It went to a private encrypted line in an office on the 3rd floor of the Pentagon's E-ring. "No," Aria said, pressing the phone to her ear. "I don't need a lawyer. I need an airstrike." The line rang twice. "Secure line. Identify." A deep, gravelly voice answered. "Tariq," Aria said. "It's Aria." There was a pause. The voice on the other end shifted from professional to concerned. "Aria, you were supposed to be briefing the Joint Chiefs on the Pacific strategy. Thorne is tearing the building apart looking for you." "Where are you?" "I've been detained, Tariq." "Detained by whom? Is this a foreign intelligence snatch?" The voice sharpened instantly. In the background, Aria could hear the rustle of papers stopping. "Domestic," Aria said calmly. "Arlington Police Department, 4th Precinct. Officer Ronan Blaine, badge number 4922. I was arrested while purchasing a vehicle for my son." "Arrested?" Secretary of Defense Tariq Lang let out a breath that sounded like a growl. "On what charges?" "Trespassing and impersonating an officer. They claim my CAC card is a forgery. I've been assaulted, manhandled, and denied legal counsel. They confiscated my phone and my classified credentials." Silence hung on the line. It was the heavy silence of a gathering storm. "Are you injured?" "Superficial bruising. My pride is intact. But Tariq, they have my biometrics in a local unsecured server. And Officer Blaine is currently in possession of a wallet containing the coordinates for the upcoming NATO summit written on a note I forgot to shred." That was the kicker. It wasn't just a bad arrest anymore. It was a national security breach. "Stay put, Aria," Lang said, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly low volume. "Do not say another word to them. I am activating the JAG Corps, and I'm sending the 3rd Infantry MPS from Fort Myer." "Tariq," Aria added, "send the press too." "Done." The line went dead. Aria handed the phone back to a terrified Officer Riley. "Thank you, Alara. If I were you, I would go stand outside in the parking lot. It's going to get very crowded in here very soon." Riley ran. Police Chief Declan was sitting in his office enjoying a lukewarm coffee and reviewing budget reports when his desk phone rang. It was the mayor. "Declan!" the mayor screamed. "Turn on the news right now, Mr. Mayor. What's going on? Why is there a convoy of black SUVs and military police Humvees tearing down Main Street toward your precinct? I have CNN calling me, asking why the Department of Defense just declared a hostile event at the 4th Precinct." Declan dropped his coffee. It splashed over his paperwork, but he didn't notice. He scrambled for the remote and turned on the TV mounted in the corner. The screen showed live aerial footage from a news chopper. His precinct was being surrounded, not by SWAT, by soldiers, heavily armed soldiers in tactical gear. 2 massive black Suburbans with government plates screeched to a halt at the front curb. Men in dark suits with earpieces jumped out, flanked by MPS holding M4 carbines. Declan ran out of his office, his heart hammering against his ribs. He burst into the bullpen just as the front doors were kicked open. "Nobody move," a voice boomed. It wasn't a police officer. It was a colonel in full army fatigues, flanked by 4 MPs who already had their weapons raised. "Hands where we can see them," the colonel shouted. Sergeant Novak dropped his sandwich. "What the hell is this?" "I am Colonel Novak, Judge Advocate General's Corps." The man barked, marching into the center of the room. You are holding a high-value asset of the United States military in violation of federal law. Who is the watch commander?" Chief Declan stepped forward, his hands trembling. I am Chief Declan. There must be a mistake. We just have the usual drunks and—" "You have Lieutenant General Aria Voss in a cage." Novak roared inches from Declan's face. "Where is she?" Declan felt the blood drain from his face. The lady in sweatpants. The impersonator. Impersonator. Novak looked like he was about to strike the chief. "That woman is the highest-ranking female officer in the armed forces. She reports directly to the president. Open that cell now." Just then, the back door swung open. Officer Blaine walked in holding a soda, whistling. He froze. He saw the soldiers. He saw the chief shaking. He saw the assault rifles pointed at the booking desk. "Whoa." Blaine laughed nervously. "Did we catch a terrorist or something?" Colonel Novak turned slowly to look at Blaine. He saw the name tag. "Officer Ronan Blaine?" the colonel asked, his voice deadly calm. "Yeah, that's me," Blaine said, puffing his chest out slightly, still not grasping the gravity of his situation. "I'm going to enjoy this," Novak whispered. He signaled to two MPs. "Secure him. Federal custody. Charges are assault on a superior officer, kidnapping, and espionage." "Espionage?" Blaine shrieked as two massive soldiers slammed him into the wall much harder than he had slammed Aria. "You confiscated a wallet containing classified state secrets and left it unsecured on a public counter," Novak said. "That's a felony, son. You're done." The colonel walked past the pinned officer straight to the holding cells. He found the keys on the desk and unlocked cell 2. The door swung open. Aria stood up. She brushed the dust off her joggers. She looked at the colonel. "Took you long enough, Jim," she said dryly. "The Colonel Novak, my apologies for the traffic. The secretary sends his regards." Aria walked out of the cell. The entire bullpen was silent. Every police officer was frozen. Chief Declan looked like he was about to faint. Aria stopped in front of Blaine, who was now handcuffed and bleeding from a cut on his lip where his face had met the wall. "I told you," Aria said, looking down at him. "I told you to check my ID. Now you're going to have plenty of time to read the regulations. Leavenworth is lovely this time of year." She turned to the chief. "Chief Declan, I'll be taking my car now. And Officer Riley, she keeps her job. She's the only good cop you have." Aria walked out the front door, flanked by her military escort into the blinding flash of paparazzi cameras. But the war wasn't over. She was just getting started. Blaine was the pawn. Now she was going for the dealership. While Blaine was being processed in a federal holding facility, the storm was just making landfall at Dominion Luxury Motors. Gary, the salesman, was in the break room recounting his version of events to a mechanic. "I'm telling you, she was crazy. Probably on drugs. Blaine took care of her. We won't be seeing her again." He took a bite of his donut, feeling victorious. Then the phone at the front desk rang. Then the fax machine started beeping. Then the manager's cell phone rang. Within seconds, every communication device in the building was screaming. Mr. Thorne, the owner of the dealership, a man who valued his profit margins above his soul, stormed out of his glass-walled office. He was holding an iPad, his face the color of ash. "Gary!" Thorne screamed, his voice cracking. "Get out of here now." Gary wiped the sugar off his mouth and swaggered out. "What's up, boss? Did we sell the M3? Thorne threw the iPad at him. It clattered across the desk. On the screen was a live broadcast from CNN. The headline read, "Pentagon General racially profiled and assaulted at Arlington dealership." The footage showed General Voss walking out of the precinct, flanked by MPs, looking like the god of war. That's her," Gary stammered, but she was wearing sweatpants. That is the deputy commander of U.S. Strategic Command, you idiot, Thorne roared. Do you know who buys 40% of our cars? Military officers. We are miles from the Pentagon. As if on cue, a convoy of vehicles pulled into the dealership lot. But it wasn't customers. It was news vans, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, local affiliates. They swarmed the lot like locusts. But the real blow didn't come from the media. It came via a courier motorcycle that pulled up right through the crowd. The courier walked in and handed a red envelope to Thorne. Thorne opened it. He read the letterhead. Department of the Army Joint Base, Meyer Henderson Hall. It was an official declaration from the garrison commander. Subject off-limits designation. Effective immediately, Dominion Luxury Motors is placed on the Armed Forces Disciplinary Control Board's off-limits list due to discriminatory practices and hostile acts against service members. Any military personnel found conducting business at this location will be subject to punishment under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Thorne collapsed into his chair. Being put on the off-limits list in a military town like Arlington wasn't a fine. It was a death sentence. It meant no soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine could legally step foot on his lot. You're fired, Thorne whispered to Gary. Get your stuff and get out. You can't fire me, Gary yelled, panic setting in. I was protecting the inventory. You told us to watch out for urban types. I never said that, Thorne lied, glancing at the cameras pointing through the window. Yes, you did, Gary shouted, his voice carrying to the reporters who had pushed open the doors. It's in the employee handbook under loss prevention profiles. The cameras flashed. Gary had just implicated the owner in a systematic discrimination policy. Aria returned. The lot was empty. A going out of business banner wasn't up yet, but the silence told the story. She pulled up in a brand new Porsche Panamera, bought from a competitor across town who had treated her with respect. She stepped out wearing her full-dress blue uniform, the dark jacket, the light blue trousers with the gold stripe, and the 3 silver stars gleaming on her shoulders. Silas, her son, stepped out of the passenger side. He looked at the BMW M3, still sitting in the showroom window. Mr. Thorne ran out, sweating profusely. General Voss, please. This is all a misunderstanding. I fired the employee. We want to make this right. Take the M3. It's a gift on the house. Aria adjusted her gloves. She looked at Thorne with cold indifference. I don't accept bribes, Mr. Thorne, she said. And I don't do business with cowards who throw their subordinates under the bus to save their own skin. Please, Thorne begged. The off-limits list, it's killing us. We haven't sold a car. I have a mortgage. I have kids. So do the soldiers you profiled, Aria said. So does the single mother in the National Guard you denied a loan to. Yes, I looked into your records. She turned to Silas. Do you want that car, son? Silas looked at the M3, then at Thorne, then at his mother. Nah, it looks cheap from here. Aria smiled. Let's go. As they drove away, Thorne watched a tow truck pull into the lot. The bank was recalling his inventory. The dealership wasn't just losing a sale, it was being liquidated. Gary was unemployed and facing charges of filing a false police report. The business was dead. But for Officer Blaine, the nightmare was only just beginning. The federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia, was packed. It wasn't just local press. It was national. The handcuffed general case had become a lightning rod for discussions on police reform and the civilian-military divide. Officer Ronan Blaine sat at the defense table. He looked smaller now. The arrogance that had fueled him in the dealership was gone, replaced by a twitchy nervousness. He wore a cheap suit that fit poorly. His wife had left him after the arrest, taking the kids and the dog. The charge was deprivation of rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. Section 242. A federal crime that carried serious prison time enhanced by the assault charge. The prosecutor was Amanda Cole, a sharp-witted assistant U.S. attorney known for eating corrupt cops for breakfast. Blaine's defense attorney, a slick, expensive lawyer named Richard Thorne, paid for by the police union, stood up for his opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Thorne boomed, pacing the floor. Officer Blaine made a mistake, a simple human mistake. He saw a suspicious individual. He followed protocol. He did not know she was a general. Is it a crime to be wrong? Is it a crime to do your job? The government wants to destroy this man's life because of who he arrested, not what he did. It was a good speech. Some jurors nodded. Blaine looked hopeful. Then General Voss took the stand. She didn't wear her uniform. She wore a simple gray suit. She wanted the jury to see Aria the citizen, not Aria the general, because that's who Blaine had abused. "General Voss," Prosecutor Cole asked, "when Officer Blaine approached you, did you resist?" "I did not," Aria stated clearly. "I raised my hands. I identified myself. I offered my ID." "And how did he respond?" "He called me a liar. He kicked my legs apart. He wrenched my shoulder, which has required 2 surgeries to repair from combat injuries." Thorne stood up for cross-examination, looking smug. "General Voss, isn't it true you were belligerent? Isn't it true you used your rank to intimidate the officer after the fact? You said you have no idea what you've done. That sounds like a threat." "It was a warning," Aria corrected him coolly. "A warning that he was violating the Constitution he swore to uphold." "But you were dressed like a vagrant," Thorne sneered. "I was dressed like a mother running errands," Aria shot back, her voice rising just enough to silence the room. "Does the Constitution require a dress code, Mr. Thorne? Does the Fourth Amendment only apply if I'm wearing a tuxedo?" Thorne stuttered. No, but no further questions," Thorne muttered, sitting down quickly. But the nail in the coffin wasn't Aria's testimony. It was the surprise witness. The prosecution calls Officer Laura Riley. A gasp went through the courtroom. The blue wall of silence, the unwritten rule that cops don't rat on cops, was about to be shattered. Riley walked in. She looked terrified but determined. She took the oath. "Officer Riley," Cole asked, "walk us through the arrest." Riley took a deep breath. "Blaine." Officer Blaine didn't wait. He decided she was guilty the second he saw her. He wanted to humiliate her. "And did he check her ID?" "No," Riley said, her voice shaking. "He threw it on the dashboard. He laughed about it." "And did he turn off his body camera?" "He tried to," Riley said, "but he missed the button. He only muted the audio. The video kept rolling." Thorne jumped up. "Objection. We haven't seen this video. It was recovered by FBI forensics this morning from the deleted cache." Cole smiled. "Permission to play Exhibit A?" The judge nodded. "Play it." The screens in the courtroom flickered to life. The audio was silent, but the video was crystal clear. The jury watched Blaine shove Aria. They saw him laugh. They saw him throw the wallet, but then they saw something else. In the squad car, while Aria was in the back, the video showed Blaine pulling out his personal phone. He texted someone. The prosecution zoomed in on the screen. The text message to his wife read, "Got another one. Thinks she's special. Going to make her cry in the holding cell." The courtroom erupted. "Order! Order!" Judge Winston hammered his gavel. Blaine put his head in his hands. It wasn't a mistake. It was malice. It was premeditated sadism. Thorne slumped in his chair. He knew it was over. The jury deliberated. We find the defendant, Ronan Blaine, guilty on all counts. Judge Winston looked at Blaine over his spectacles. Mr. Blaine, you disgraced your badge. You treated a citizen, a war hero, like garbage because you enjoyed the power. I am sentencing you to years in federal prison, followed by years of supervised release. Blaine sobbed as the marshals cuffed him. The same sound, click, click, that he had inflicted on Aria now sealed his own fate. As he was led away, he looked back at the gallery. Aria was sitting there. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement that justice had been served. But the story wasn't quite over. There was one final twist left, one that would turn this tragedy into a legacy. The dust settled on the legal battlefield of Alexandria, but the ripples of General Aria Voss's ordeal were just beginning to reshape the landscape of the entire state. While the media cycle eventually moved on to the next headline, Aria remained in the trenches, transforming her pain into a blueprint for systemic change. With the federal conviction of Ronan Blaine and the total liquidation of Dominion Luxury Motors, Aria found herself the recipient of a massive civil settlement. Between the dealership's insurance payouts and the city's liability fund, she was awarded $12 million. To the public, it was a staggering sum. To the city council, it was a bitter pill. But to Aria, it was simply reparations for a breach of the social contract. Many expected her to take the money, retire from the army, and disappear into a quiet life of luxury on a vineyard in Napa or a villa in Italy. They didn't know the woman who had spent years navigating the Pentagon's bureaucracy and the Middle East's war zones. Aria Voss didn't retire. She redeployed. Aria stood on the very plot of land where Dominion Luxury Motors once stood. The glass and steel showroom was gone, replaced by a hollowed-out construction site. The smell of expensive leather and floor wax had been replaced by the raw, honest scent of overturned earth and wet concrete. Beside her stood Silas, now driving the Porsche his mother had helped him select from a dealership that had treated them with the dignity any human being deserved. "It's hard to believe this is where it happened," Silas said, looking at the architectural blueprints spread across the hood of the car. "Sometimes I still see you pinned against that cruiser when I close my eyes." Aria placed a hand on his shoulder, a touch firm and grounding. "Then we'll give you something better to look at, Silas. We're going to build something here that makes it impossible to see the ghost of that day." Aria didn't spend a dime of the settlement on herself. Instead, she established the Voss Center for Justice and Leadership. It wasn't designed to be a mere community center with a basketball court and a library. It was designed as a dual-purpose fortress of civilian-military cooperation. One wing of the massive modern facility was dedicated to the Voss Legal Clinic, providing top-tier pro bono legal representation for victims of civil rights abuses and predatory business practices. The other wing, however, was where the real hard karma manifested. Aria had used her influence within the Pentagon and the Department of Justice to create a state-of-the-art training facility. She had lobbied the Virginia state legislature to pass the Voss Accountability Act, a law that mandated every officer in the Northern Virginia area undergo the Voss Protocol, an immersive simulation and implicit bias course. And they had to do it right here on the site where Ronan Blaine had failed his most basic duty. The irony was a jagged pill for the local police union to swallow. But with the federal government watching and the public's eyes fixed on the handcuffed general, they had no choice but to comply. As the center reached its final stages of construction, the fate of the antagonists provided a stark contrast to Aria's rise. Gary the salesman had become a pariah. The video of him mocking a 3-star general had gone viral. And in the digital age, there is no such thing as a fresh start. No dealership in the country would hire him. He was viewed as a liability, a man whose presence invited lawsuits and boycotts. His wife had left him, citing his toxic arrogance as the reason she couldn't stay. Desperate for any income, Gary eventually found work as a night shift janitor at the very mall where the Voss Center held its inaugural youth gala. He spent his nights mopping floors, staring at posters of General Voss's face, the woman he had called trash, now hailed as the city's greatest benefactor. Every time he pushed his yellow bucket past the Voss wing, he was reminded of the commission he lost and the life he threw away for the sake of a moment's prejudice. Mr. Thorne, the dealership owner, didn't fare much better. After the bank seized his inventory and the off-limits list stayed in place, he tried to sue the Army for tortious interference. The case was laughed out of court. He lost his multi-million-dollar home in Great Falls and was forced to move into a modest apartment. He spent his days in bitter litigation with Gary, the two men who once conspired to humiliate a customer, now tearing each other apart over the scraps of their ruined reputations. But the most profound karma was reserved for Ronan Blaine. Life in a federal prison was a far cry from the power trips of the 4th Precinct. Blaine was stripped of his badge, his pension, and his pride. Because of his former status as a police officer, he spent much of his time in protective custody, a small gray box that mirrored the holding cell he had shoved Aria into. When he was finally moved to the general population at a low-security facility, he was assigned to the laundry detail. The man who had once reveled in the crispness of his blue uniform now spent hours a day scrubbing the stains out of other men's jumpsuits. He was a nobody. He was a number. Every time he heard the metallic clack of a cell door locking, he thought of the sound of his handcuffs hitting Aria's wrists. The sound haunted his sleep. He had been a king of a small hill, and now he was the dirt at the bottom of the mountain. The grand opening of the Voss Center was a national event. The street was lined with American flags and the air was filled with the sound of a military brass band. Secretary of Defense Tariq Lang arrived in a motorcade, stepping out to embrace Aria in front of a swarm of cameras. "You could have just taken the win in court, Aria," Lang whispered as they walked toward the podium. "You didn't have to build a monument." "It's not a monument, Tariq," she replied, her voice echoing the steel of her resolve. "It's a lighthouse. If we don't shine a light on the cracks in the system, people will keep falling through them." When Aria stepped up to the microphone, the crowd of thousands went silent. She wasn't wearing her uniform today. She was wearing a simple, elegant black suit. She wanted them to see the woman, the citizen, the neighbor. "On this very spot, I was told I didn't belong," Aria began, her voice clear and resonant. "I was told that my appearance, my race, and my presence were a threat. I was told that the law was a weapon to be used against me rather than a shield to protect me. Many people have called this a story of wrongful arrest. But it wasn't just an arrest, it was a test. It was a test of whether our institutions are stronger than the prejudices of the individuals who run them." She looked out at the front row where a group of young police recruits sat in their crisp, new uniforms. "To the officers in the audience," she said, her eyes locking onto theirs. "When you put on that badge, you aren't putting on a suit of armor that makes you untouchable. You are putting on a heavy responsibility that makes you accountable. This center is here to ensure you never forget that. This land used to be a place where people were judged by the cars they could afford. Now it is a place where they will be judged by the content of their character." As the ribbon was cut, Aria didn't look at the cameras. She looked at Silas, who was smiling with a pride that eclipsed any material gift she could have ever given him. The final twist of the day came when the first director of the Voss Legal Clinic was announced. It was Alara Riley, the former rookie officer who had stood up to Blaine. After the trial, Riley had resigned from the force, unable to reconcile her ethics with the culture of the 4th Precinct. Aria had personally paid for her to finish her law degree, recognizing the spark of integrity that Blaine had tried to extinguish. "Welcome home, Alara," Aria said, handing her the keys to the office. "I won't let you down, General," Riley said, her eyes misty. "I know you won't. You're the only one who didn't." As the sun set over Arlington, the lights of the Voss Center flickered on, casting a long, bright glow over the street. The warrior had completed her final maneuver. She hadn't just destroyed the careers of those who wronged her. She had replaced their hate with a permanent structure of hope. The story of the handcuffed general ended not with the bang of a gavel, but with the quiet, steady heartbeat of a community finally beginning to heal. Aria Voss walked to her car, the 3 stars on her shoulder boards catching the last rays of the sun. She had fought wars on 3 continents, but her greatest victory was won on this single acre of Virginia soil. She had proven that while injustice can be fast and loud, true justice is patient, precise, and absolute. General Aria's story is a powerful reminder that true power isn't found in a badge or a gun, but in the unwavering strength of character and the courage to stand for what is right. She turned a moment of profound injustice into a legacy that will protect generations to come. This real-life drama shows us that while karma may take its time, it hits with the force of a landslide when it finally arrives. If you were moved by the general's resilience and the satisfying downfall of those who underestimated her, show your support for justice. Please hit the like button and share this video to spread the message that no one is above the law. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story of courage and hard-hitting karma. What would you have done in the general's shoes? Let us know in the comments below.